Okay, it's recording. Okay, we are here for our CTE Spotlight series webinar, and we have Meg, who has graciously agreed to share her project that she did in collaboration with a third grade class. So before she takes it over, we are from Napa County Office of Education, and we're the CTIG Region 3 Technical Assistance providers for CTIG recipients. And we're so excited to have Meg share her project as part of CTE Month and our CTE Spotlight. So Meg, I'm going to turn it over to you and sit back and enjoy what you have to share.
Thank you. Hi. Like Lacey said, I'm Meg. I was teaching at Santa Clara High School in Santa Clara, and I was lucky enough to teach graphic design, which was an advanced design class, digital media. So it's like the second step for digital media, which is in the CTE pathway. So my kids were sophomores to seniors. This particular class was mostly juniors and seniors. I don't think I had even any sophomores. And after going to the PBL conference after going to High Tech High down in San Diego, I just got inspired, and I love doing big projects. I always have. I didn't know that it was like a whole teaching method. And so I just got really excited once I figured out how to make that my everyday thing. So the first big project that we did that was a true PBL project versus just a project that you do in like a traditional classroom was this one. And it was a challenge for me to make it true to PBL. Having to have the kids know a certain amount before they actually stepped into the project, I think was my biggest challenge. And to include that and kind of working backwards from the product and creating the assignments and creating the tasks that they needed to do and the skills that they needed to learn in order to create that product. Something that, again, I always had in my heart to do, which was to open up the audience of these projects and what these kids produce, and was thrilled when I discovered that other people are thinking the same thing. So I knew I wanted them to create something that was going to both impact other people and be seen outside of the classroom, because they don't care what I think, right? They don't know that they want to, but they want to share it with everybody else. So I was lucky enough to have Kristen D'Antoni as my TOSA for CTE, and she used to be a grade school teacher, and so she was awesome and hooked me up with she put it out there for a few teachers, and Stacy Butler, who teaches third grade at a school walking distance from our high school, was on board with it and said yes right away. And so we started working on this. So it's a book project. They wrote a book together. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Sorry. Okay. Can we see it?
Yeah.
All right. So it's called Let's Make a Book. It was supposed to be a working title, but I just kind of left it because I thought it was kind of funny. So it was a story and illustration collaboration, high school graphic design class with third graders. And the cool part about this is we have a block schedule 2 days a week. And so we actually were able to leave the campus and go to our littles once a week throughout the process. So it was really kind of fun because we got to get outside, walk, and meet in a totally different place, which if you teach high school or if you teach at all, you know that getting outside of the classroom totally changes their absorption, and I think just really changes the focus and allows you to focus. So the book, I decided I wanted to be on kindness. I felt like it was a universal theme that, I think it's always been relevant, but it's extremely relevant right now. And it was a theme that could be both deep, but also for third graders to be able to kind of fathom and understand. And I was actually surprised at how much third graders know. I have 2 children, but they are little tiny, and I don't spend enough time, obviously, with these like kids, I guess. Third graders, I think they're 8. it was just insane to me how much they knew and how big their hearts were and how much they really understood the concept of kindness. So here I thought I was picking something like low, and they actually went really deep with it. So that was really cool. So I set it up to be a 6-week collaborative project. This schedule changed a little bit because of we had homecoming and we had some things. So instead of setting up the actual dates, I just did kind of a basic layout of what we did for the different weeks. So week 0, I met with Stacy and we talked about our goals. We talked about, you know, what this was going to look like, what tasks I needed her to do and what I needed to do. Because it's an elective, on my end, I had some students with some special needs, and she also had some students with some special needs. So we were able to actually talk about the kids matching up. And I think that was really important too, when you're dealing with littles that might be intimidated by the bigs. And I actually thought that the bigs were more intimidated by the littles, weirdly. But, you know, and depending on their social, like what they've been exposed to, you know, were they going to be comfortable with like a big guy, or would they rather have like a more quiet female? So we guessed, we didn't know, we made generalizations, and it worked out really well. And the kids had a really, and some of my bigs had 2 littles because of the numbers, the way that it worked out. So I took some really strong students and actually gave them multiple kids to work with, which ended up being a lot harder because the kids did not want to share their ideas for the books. They wanted their own book. So week 1, the students met. We just did some fun little icebreakers. They got to know each other. They did surveys where they asked each other questions back and forth, and we let them have the entire hour to just talk. And the only question that we asked was about kindness. And we asked them to each tell a story about something kind that happened to them or something kind that they observed. We kind of started to talk about the book, but we really didn't get into this. So week 2, the littles started to draw, and we talked about characters, and we talked about the vibe of the book. And they just drew, and the bigs observed, and they wrote notes on the drawings as to what the kids were kind of explaining things were. Some of the drawings you're going to see, I'll show you some of them. Some of them were really easy to interpret, some of them not so much. But it was great. And then after week 2, we took a break, and sorry, one second. Matt Rivers in here. Just 1 second, sorry. Say hi. Here's my little. Sorry. Shut up. So there was, sorry. Oh, wait, go back. So they took a break from the littles, and we actually had a professional artist. She is an illustrator. I had her, she lives in San Francisco, so she was about an hour away. And so she was an industry partner that came in and spoke to my students and talked to them, did some workshops with them, and they actually drew the setting for the book. So the drawings that were done with the littles were the characters and any like things in the story, and the bigs worked on the setting and kind of the background. So there was a combination when it came to the art making part of it. We came back after that, did a reflection. Littles gave feedback on the story. It was so funny that this break, I'm sorry, I'm going to step back to week 3. This ended up being about a 3-week break because of homecoming and other things. So I continued to have my students work on things inside of my classroom. So one day they did the workshop with the professional artist. That another day we talked about story. We had a scheduled person to come in to actually talk about writing stories professionally. That actually didn't end up working out. But if I were to do this again, I would make sure that I had somebody there for that. So I did my best. I'm not a writer per se, but it worked out okay. Had them write up a rough draft of the story. Went back to the kids, did a reflection on what they've, done so far. Kids had a lot of commentary on what the bigs had created at that point. And then the next week, they actually, or the next time that we met up, the bigs came to us. So we are in a computer lab, and so they were able to come in and see what the bigs had been working on and how they digitized all of the drawings that the little kids did. So even though we're only at like week 4, like 4 weeks of actually meeting, my students were working on this probably 2 additional days a week in our class. I was still having them do other projects, other assignments in graphic design that I needed them to know for other things, but we were working so much. This project was so much bigger than I anticipated as far as the time and energy that went into creating this book. So that's the only side note. Like, this was almost the whole semester it ended up being, even though technically meeting, we only met, 5 or 6 times with our partners. So we then took another little break after that because we had to go to publish. And we took the books. My students laid everything out in Illustrator. They created a publisher-ready version of the book, sent it to the publisher, and then we just had to wait for them to get in. We ended up using Blurb, which was out of San Francisco. I totally dropped the ball and forgot that I could have made another industry partnership with Mixbook, which was closer to us in San Jose. So that would be the biggest thing that I would share with people when you're doing this. Make sure you're reaching out to your local entities if you can. So, all right, I will move on. So the industry influencers, like I said, we spoke with an Illustrator artist, Lindsay. She was fantastic. This is some of her work. She has a very loose, I wanted like these imaginative, kind of fantastical scenes. At least that's what I had in my head. Some of them turned out that way, some of them didn't, and that was okay. But she immediately came to mind, and I had a connection to her. So, you use your friends, you use the people that you know to your advantage, right? So, and she had so much fun. I think she really enjoyed being there with the kids. So here's some of her work. And she put together her own presentation that was just great, and the kids did exercises. I have photos of that. We did the story web when we started writing. I just made a really, really simple worksheet for them to fill out. We chatted about it. These were all of the different tasks and assignments that they did throughout the project. So it was a lot of things. Digitizing, I had to teach them how to use the scanner, like little things I think that, I don't know, I take for granted at least, that they need to know in order to make the book. So everybody knew we were making the book, but we had to work backwards to make sure that they could do all of the other things leading up to that. These were the different publishing options. So like I said, I used Blurb, but if I could go back in time, I would use Mixbook and reach out to the wonderful woman that I met on the beach that could have helped us out. So there's that. So here's kind of what one of the books breaks down. So they had to create a cover. Their cover illustration was its own project, where it's a project that I do in my graphic design and digital art classes. And so I just adapted it for the cover. If you look at this, this is actually an H. They chose a significant letter. So it really is kind of a separate entity than the inside of the book. They had to create end sheets. They had to do publishing information. I wrote up this blurb, and then they, just filled in the information that was applicable to them. They both did a dedication, both the bigs and littles. And here you can kind of see the combination of the setting with the digitized drawings that the little kids did. And some of the books were really meaty in their story, and some of them were really simple, and they all were successful, I would say. I don't know why that keeps happening. So this isn't the whole book, obviously. This is just what it broke down into the different pieces. And this one, The Adventures of the Octopus and the Maricorn, and this was just like a funny, like some of them were really funny. And I think that was kind of the combination of taking little kid humor and mixing it with high school. You got a really humorous thing that came out of it, a really humorous product. So just a few. This kid is incredible when it comes to his illustrations. And I had to actually tell him he had to let his kid do something because he just wanted this book to be so perfect. So they actually switched, and he did the characters and his little did the background, but I just let it happen. Another one, that turned out really beautiful. Again, this isn't the whole book, just a couple of pages that I really tried to emphasize, as you would in a children's book, that you're going to have different angles. Not everything's going to be the same size on every single page. So to try to use this same image, you know, you can rotate it, you can reflect it, you can cut it off, you can crop it, you can make it bigger. And he didn't have to redraw this. It's just copy and pasted in different ways. So here's some of the kids working together, drawing, working on, they did a whole storyboard for this. And I think it was really good for some of the kids to build this relationship. You know, when we arrived, even at week 2, the little kids just ran full speed towards their big, and it was like extremely endearing to watch. And I had some kids actually struggling with some personal things. And I feel like this was almost a release for them, because they couldn't think about those other things. You know, this particular student that's in my head, he was struggling outside of school. And, you know, when he was around his little, he kind of had to put his game face on and be there for him. And I think it was a really good kind of therapeutic step for him. So I think building that relationship, I thought was really, really awesome. So some of their little drawings, an example of the storyboard. I had them, they couldn't use anything violent. And some of them, you know, really wanted like this idea of war. So one of the stories has a boogie bomb where they threw a grenade and the grenade played disco music and everybody had to dance. So, you know, they still found their way to have like a gun or a bomb or something of that nature, but they had to make a positive spin on it. So it ended up being kind of funny. This is Lindsay. So this was the presentation that she had. She came in, and just, it was awesome to see my graphic design kids, you know, using a paintbrush and paper and cutting out and collaging and taking their drawings that the little kids did and kind of mix them around. So this was a really, really fun day. A mess I hadn't had to deal with since I taught traditional art, but super fun. And then the day that the kids came to our classroom, we have this big, beautiful Mac lab, and the kids were as enamored with it as I still am. So it was a lot of fun. So then we sent out this invitation to everyone, and we had a big party. And it was super fun. It was in my classroom, and I wanted it to be an exhibition that was industry standard. So I set it up as much like an art show as I possibly could. We had refreshments, we had treats, we had music on, we moved all the desks, we invited everybody from the district. My superintendent actually came, which was a really cool moment for me. And all the support people that helped me through this. I did not do this alone. There was a lot of people helping me, you know, coordinate with the other teacher and coordinate with the other school, getting permission slips, you know, making sure it was okay to walk around the corner, you know, making sure it was okay for the kids to come. And, you know, some of the kids that had challenges, we had other people that needed to come. So there was a lot of logistics that went into it, but 100% worth it in the end. So, and the books were on display. We actually ordered here, can you see me? Yeah. So we actually ordered the books, and this is what they looked like. This is what our budget allowed. I wish that we could have done like a hardcover, but they turned out absolutely beautiful. So they've got the cover and then all of the information. So each kid got their book. We gifted them with that. I just luckily ordered 2 of one, so I got to keep one. But because we used, you know, some of these online publishers that were so amazing, you get a PDF version of it automatically. Like I could have had my kids make a PDF version, but just having it, so they can go online at any time and just download their book if they want, and they can go back on and order it if they want to order one. And they can order it hardcover, they can order it however they want. So that was kind of cool too. They didn't want to put the money up front, but I have a feeling some of the kids went and ordered them after the fact. So we had a photographer come in. Frankie, you need to go ask Daddy, please. Okay. Sorry. My husband just got home from being gone for a couple days. So yeah, I just wanted to share. So this is mixed books. Blurb. So these are the books, and you could go in and order more, or you can download the book. You can also sell the books through some of these sites. So you could turn this into a fundraiser and expand upon this even more to an even bigger audience, if you wanted to. So that was kind of cool. So they can go in and order any of these. And this is the PDF version of the book. It just looks like this. And it's just really cool that they can go through, and I made them do end sheets. They really did look like real books, which I was excited about. There's a couple. This is the one with the boogie bomb. There's the boogie bomb. You know, and some of them definitely, like in any class, you're going to have an array and a scaffolded, you know, a ladder of kids that are going to be crazy successful and some that are going to struggle a little bit more. And, you know, lucky for us, the point that I wanted them to make and create this product with working with the younger students, everyone was successful in that capacity. So yeah, that's all I have to show you. So I'm happy to answer questions or whatever else needs to happen.
Meg, you said you guys were able to purchase a book for each kiddo. Was that for both the bigs and the littles, or just
for the littles?
Okay, and where did that funding come from?
That came from CTE. So it was not my personal class budget, but I presented it to our CTE people at the district, and they were able to make it work. I think all in all, it was about $300 to get them all printed. Again, I do feel like if you created an industry partnership, had I worked with a local company, I probably could have schmoozed our way into getting maybe 2 copies for that price or something. So, you know, this is the first time I've ever done a project like this, and knowing what I know now, I would start that work from day one, and I'd be setting that up. I kind of waited until the end, and so then we were, you know, under a time constraint to get these printed by the time the semester was over for 2 reasons. One, because the semester was going to be over, but I was also leaving at the semester. So I wanted to make sure that I wrapped up this project and had everything finished and complete, and that they all got what they expected at the end. So I do think the big kids would have liked having one.
If you did, well, would you do this project again or some version of it?
Oh, 100%. Yes, I would love to. If I am fortunate enough to get to teach graphic design or honestly, any art class, any kind of design class where we could combine, I feel like I could do some form of this. I mean, it would be hard to do without a computer. So if I was back in the traditional art classroom and I didn't have access to that, it'd be a little bit tough. But I totally would love to do this again. And I feel like now I have the tools and the knowledge to do it even better.
What would you do differently? What would you do to do it better?
I would create more industry partnerships along the way. I think more steps I could have brought other people in. You know, I tend to be like, well, I can do it all. And I do have experience in a lot of the different places, but that's okay. I don't have to be the only one teaching them. So I think I would probably have opened it up at the layout. I would have had somebody, you know, I would have found somebody to come in and help with that. I was in, you know, in San Jose, Adobe's in San Jose. I could have had somebody come in and talk about setting up the layout in either Illustrator or InDesign, and using the software from their standpoint. Again, a different industry partner than Blurb was great. I have nothing against Blurb, and they were semi-local, but, you know, finding somebody even more local. And not everywhere is going to have that benefit, because I feel like all the tech companies are in one area. So if you're not teaching in Greater San Jose, you probably won't find a local publisher, but there might be a local printer in your city that might want to participate in this with you. You know, you throw a little ad in the back of the book and they might be super happy to work with you. And I would just kind of, now I have a better timeline of like how long everything takes. So I probably would have spread out the meetings a little bit more. And instead of trying to get this done in a shorter amount of time, I might stretch the project out a little bit longer so that they can tackle other things at this, like simultaneously. Or squeeze it together, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like either hit it 100% or kind of spreading it out to where we can fit in our other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, would you be willing to share, like on a slide or something, your contact information? So if that future teachers or people have questions or want to talk further with you about it, they could reach out to you?
Yeah, I'll do that right now. Yeah, and it was, honestly, it was a super rewarding project. I mean, I know that we don't create things for that like personal gain, but it just brought me so much joy, and the celebration at the end was so fun, and everyone was so excited about it. You know, other teachers were super excited about it and like came by like, wait, what are you guys doing? Like, what's going on over here? And the energy that it created was just a lot of fun. And
that's amazing. I love the exhibition at the end, and that your superintendent came, which is amazing to not only see your students and their work, but for you to be proud, you know, and that does mean a lot. And the work-based learning you talked about as being part of it, you know, the industry connections and engagement and the relevance of the topic and the relevance for your bigs working with the littles. I wonder what takeaways were there about kindness, since that was the theme?
Well, there was a lot. I think the biggest takeaway was that it was different than just being nice, and that it was a little bit deeper than that, and that it was going above and beyond to, you know, share this message of love. And yeah, okay, you can be nice and you can say whatever you want to somebody to appease them, but you know what really deeply is the kind thing to do. And so I think that was it. I mean, some of them were very surface because I think just the age that they were, but the bigs did a really good job of trying to pull a little bit more out of them. But yeah, just the difference between nice and kind, and really going, you know, to be kind is bigger than that. It's bigger than just being polite. It's actually, you know, wholeheartedly expressing love towards someone and whatever it is that they need, whether it's they need assistance, or, you know, some of them people needed help with something, or a lot of them were somebody was getting bullied, and so the kind thing to do was to stand up for them, not just, I mean, they weren't the one being unkind to the person, but the really kind thing to do was to actually take it one step further and go out on a limb and stand up for the person that was having unkind things done to them. So it was fun.
That's awesome.
Some of them were really like, my brother hit me. That was unkind.
Yeah.
So we just had to push them a little bit more.
Yeah. Were there activities that you did with your students to support that or scaffold that, like reading or research or writing or things to go deeper with your kids to prepare them?
Not as much as I would have liked to. And that's another thing that I would change, is I would actually go into deeper. So whatever the subject is that you're doing, I would maybe take a day pre-project to really get into that. Doing it again, I probably would go into what kindness means today. And I'm really, I would say, passionate and interested in this entire world of like social media and the effect that it has on our relationships, and the effect that it has on confidence and self-esteem, and, you know, people's personalities and their interactions. So I kind of would have gone into, I think I might have gone into depth with that a little bit more. So no, I didn't, and I wish that I had.
Good reflection, though.
Thanks. Yeah.
Well, I know we didn't do an hour, but that's such an amazing project. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Of course, I'm happy to share it. I'm so happy that I did it. I was a little intimidated to just jump into it. Usually I would have gone second semester with something like this as like a culminating project, but I think that that's kind of like an old form of thinking, is that you just do the big project at the end. And I learned a lot by jumping into it at the beginning, and it brought my class before we started this project, they were silent. They didn't talk to each other. They didn't talk to me. And it's a really small class because it's a pretty specific class that they take. And it just brought them out of their shell so much. And we moved for personal reasons with our family and stuff, but I was really sad to leave this group of kids because we all got so close after working together like this. So I almost think diving in at the beginning is the way to do it. And then you're like totally solidifying these relationships. And I don't know, not to toot my own horn, I think these kids are going to remember this project. And I think they're going to think back on it and appreciate it when they're older. I don't know.
Oh, for sure.
Just tell myself that.
Look at those books they made. For sure they'll remember this,
Yeah.
you know? And hopefully they can order one for themselves or something. Or maybe
I wonder if I should look at my thing. I wonder if there's a way, because they have my login information and everything.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if I could look and see if any have purchased them.
Yeah, that would be interesting, actually.
Kind of fun. I'll check it out. I'll let you know.
Yeah, please do. Well, okay. Thank you so much again. I'll stop the recording.
Okay.
And thank you. Okay. Do you want to stop, Cloud?